When getting invested in a story's characters, there are many parts to enjoy. The cool and hype fights, the roaring cheers from the hard-fought victory after, the moments of tender love and affection, even the moments of vulnerability where the audience gets a chance to cry alongside the characters. However, there is a particular moment in a character's life cycle that many people in the audience very much dislike and rather hate. That being the character's death. There's something that, for a lack of a better term, feels lost when a character dies. Maybe they've been in the story for years or just a few episodes, but the connections formed with these characters, well, they can last much longer for a lot of people than just a couple of episodes. Of course, I, being the sadistic man that I am, I very much enjoy the moments when my favorite characters bite the dust. But only when it's done right. And that's what we're here to talk about today, baby! So let's begin the video with this. How does Jujutsu Kaisen handle its character deaths? To answer this question, we'll look at a few of the major character deaths, starting from Junpei to that of Gojo. And of course, as I usually do, I'll keep things brief, but go in depth. Junpei Yoshino was first introduced in chapter 18 of the manga and episode 18 of the anime. The first scene we see of Junpei in the manga is just after Mahito's born, and right after he makes his first adult transfiguration. After leaving the scene, Junpei follows Mahito outside in order to figure out what he did. Now, with every character, I'm not going to go through every moment of their life or even look at their entire introduction, but with Junpei, I find it real interesting how his first moment started with him witnessing Mahito's transfigure somebody, to then him being transfigured himself, which I think all in all is pretty good storytelling for a very well-rounded character. You see, at the time of Junpei's death, we already know who he is as a character. He's a kid that gets bullied and desires the power to get his vengeance. But at the core, he's a soft-hearted kid just trying to figure things out, with a bit of a sweet spot. But before diving any further, I should probably lay out the criteria for what I believe makes a good character death. First, does the death in question logically make sense? Second, their impact on the story after they die. And third, was their death even satisfying? Each category will be a single point, and if the character fulfilled 2 out of the 3 categories, then their death was pretty good. For characters who are in between, they'll get like a half score. For Junpei, his death made sense because he fell for Mahito's plan, and Sukuna wouldn't even help to revive him. That's 1 point for making sense. Secondly, this not only ends Junpei's character arc well, as someone who never got a chance to take control of his own life, then to be given that opportunity just to be taken away in that moment while it was still within his grasp, making it a satisfying but painful end. But Junpei's death also motivates Yuji's hatred for Mahito, and eventually, that will result in the I am you speech. Where you go, I go. Where you see, I see. Oh, sorry, I was getting lost in thought. Anyways, back to the video. This would give Junpei 3 points in my book, making this a good death. And to continue this streak of good deaths, I believe that both Nami and Nobara's death were pretty amazing as well. Starting with Nami, I don't believe it's possible to write a better death than when Gege crafted for us here. Starting with a man that genuinely hates working as a Jujutsu sorcerer, granting him the perfect character introduction, and a perspective that Yuji really needs to see to complete his character arc as the cog in the machine. But Nami also provided an important nuance to the story, due to how he approached working as a Jujutsu sorcerer. because even though Nanami hated his job, he was still committed to his duty as a Jujutsu sorcerer. In my opinion, Nanami is an easy 3 stars. His death was logical due to his injuries from Jogo, and I'd argue that his death was easily the most satisfying death in the entire series. The best death in all of Jujutsu Kaisen in my personal opinion. This brings us back to Nobara, and while I think she did have a great death, I believe there are a few issues when discussing what happened to her character, and if you ask me, this is where Gege's writing got a little shaky. Unlike the other two, I'm not going to recount Nobara's backstory / introduction, because yes, while that stuff is important, I don't think it's more important than discussing why I believe this death is kinda weird for me and a lot of other people. You see, she gets points for her death being logical, because honestly, she was just simply outsmarted by Mahito. But honestly, before we continue, let me just say this. Everyone in JJK died logically in my opinion, or at least the actual cause of their death made sense, due to the death usually resulting from an established ability or a difference in power. Anyways, back to Nobara. The reason I believe her death was interesting is because while it's logical, it's not exactly satisfying or even has much impact on the story after. Let me explain. You see, we know that Nobara's goal is to meet up with her old friend Sayori who lives in the city, but she never actually does this due to her death. Which isn't the problem. Not all characters need to achieve their goals. However, the issue lies within the fact that she could still possibly be alive, and the state of her character is still ambiguous to the current day in the manga. Like, in this moment, I was satisfied, but as soon as this panel showed up, I was like, I don't know how to feel, and started having mixed feelings. And clearly, I'm not the only one, because many people are wondering when she'll come back. Moreover, the reason I say she has no impact on the story is because while Yuji does break down over this, after this, we never talk about Nobara until the moment where Yuji gets scared that Angel was going to replace her. And after and before that, there was no mention of her in the story at all. None. And with the current direction of the manga, I just don't see how she can seamlessly return without Gege pulling something out of their ass. The same way the My Hero creator did with Mirracva. And so, I'm pretty conflicted on this. On one hand, I really love the character's death, but on the other, the way the story handled this character since their death is kind of fumbled, to be honest. I guess I'll give this death a 1.5. Half point for the impact on the moment, but taking half of the point away because that moment wasn't long enough. This brings me to one of my favorite characters in Jujutsu Kaisen, that being Yuki Suk. And I gotta say, this is another death that does puzzle me, but for different reasons than Nobara. But before I get into her death, I just want to say, I love this character! Like, her introduction alone inspired so much about my characters and the world of the story. Like, before even reading the manga, I made so many character designs based off of her. Like, she was just a vibe for real. But I have to get back to analyzing her death. The main issue with Yuki is that as much as I really like her role in the story, and even her death, similar to Nobara, it's just not really satisfying to many readers, and her death really has no impact outside of letting Choso live. And let's be honest, he's not having much impact either. However, the conflict for me comes from the idea that I don't believe Yuki was wasted. I've seen a lot of people compare this situation to Stars and Stripes for My Hero, and I just don't believe that this comparison is correct. But I do see why a lot of people make it. The real reason I don't feel like Yuki was wasted is because her role in the story makes a lot of sense, and I don't think Gege's plot really had the time or needed the time to flesh out such a minor character. Because to put it simply, there was not really a place for her in JJK's story as a major character. And I know some people might think, what do you mean? She's one of the only special grades in the entire world. But like, we had to think about it from a character and a writing standpoint rather than a power level strength standpoint. She wasn't meant to be a Yuta or a Megumi. She's more like a Todo. And while just like Todo, she's a very fun character with very interesting goals and motivations as she tried to move beyond cursed energy, I believe her fight ended the way it should have, by the hands of Kenjaku, the one her ideology battled directly against. Plus, she does have impact on the story. She contributed heavily to Geto's fall, and she gave Yuji the Book of Souls, which is likely the reason why he has a cursed technique now. Compare this to Stars and Stripes, who actually had no impact or was rarely even mentioned outside of her death. However, as I did mention, her death is still disappointing for a couple of reasons. We will never see her domain expansion. Honestly, that's becoming a great trend with Gege. While she did have impact, it was very minimal. Plus, we don't get to learn much about her character or even see the relationship with Todo, another character that essentially dies after Shibuya. Now, while I don't blame Gege for not fleshing her out to the fullest, I still have to say that it is a bit disappointing. However, that being said, I do believe that the logic holds up. Her character arc was nearly complete, and she was slightly impactful after her death. To me, this earned her a score of 2.5 for impact and complete character arc. Oh boy, here we go. This brings us to the last person. To be honest, I already talked about this, and I don't...
I am back! You cannot...
It's my turn!
So... Are you trying to talk about Gojo?
What's that?
I just asked you a question.
I hear something. Yes, I hear something. Within this endless void, my ears can hear the voices.
Okay, I'm gonna go.
Faye!
Who goes there? Show yourself! Show yourself!
Faye!
What woman?
Stop ignoring me!
I will do no such thing!
Oh my lord.
No one wants to talk about Gojo!
Well, I do.
He's dead! Get over it! It's Kashimo time!
Oh, please, who cares about him? He was a fraud.
It's not his fault! That is Gege's fault, and I'm gonna tell you why!
Fine. We are talking about Gojo.
I'm explaining how Kashimo was robbed. Now, the author set Kashimo up to be an absolute beast. He even set a binding vow so he could only use his curse technique once. The naysayers call him a fraud, but this was pure blood, I'm telling you.
Sounds like your guy's just not good enough.
Silence! It's funny that you're the one to talk when your guy couldn't even face the real Sukuna.
Well, if you let me explain.
You see, it's just not fair! How can the entire point of his character be to fight Sukuna and then use his power, and it doesn't even do anything? That is the definition of unsatisfying!
At least he wasn't hyped up from chapter 1 of the manga, dominated the fight, and that got killed off
Ow,
screen.
Stop yelling. You're gonna blow my ears out.
Huh?
Anyway, my fellow warrior didn't even have a purpose outside of fighting Sukuna, to be honest. And while I did like his final conversation with Sukuna, I can't really say it was worth much. So, I mean, maybe he gets, I don't know, like half a point, but his death still sucked.
Well, time to talk about Gojo.
Oh, God, no! Everyone talked about him! I'm sick and tired of doing it! If you want more Gojo, go watch TV or something.
Fine. What are we gonna do now?
I don't know, watch something else?
Hey guys, Unscripted Infinite here. After Gojo's death, I've really been thinking about it. I've been really kind of thinking about how does Gege handle character deaths? Because for the most part, I would say that I like it. But I'm also approaching watching Gege as a writer and thinking about, damn, I've never seen this in a story. Or man, I've never seen that before. You can just kill whoever you want. As someone who's been killing my characters off for years, it was honestly refreshing to see something like this. And of course, things like Chainsaw Man of that nature. But I've been talking to a lot of my friends, some of the voice actors who actually inspired this video, by the way. Thank you guys, I love you. And a lot of people have been saying that they don't think that Jujutsu Kaisen is as interesting anymore because everybody dies and they don't feel like there's anything happening. Which is crazy to me because I'm thinking everything's happening. People are dying in the most logical ways. Like Higuruma just died and I was like, oh shit, but it makes sense because it's Sukuna. And as much as I'm disappointed that he didn't do a lot, I still feel like it makes sense. So it kind of makes me feel like, okay, we know that people do not want to see a series like Naruto or all these other ones where characters just survive and survive and survive and survive off of bullshit. People will say that Sasuke has the biggest plot armor, but then they'll cry about Jujutsu Kaisen killing off too many characters. And I was talking to my friend about this on the phone, and he told me something that I thought was really interesting, which is why I made this video, not just the voice actor. Shout out to you, my friend. And it's because I realized that Jujutsu Kaisen doesn't really give satisfying deaths. And so I wonder, what does that mean for the story as a whole? Because what if the point is not to get a satisfying conclusion? A lot of times deaths aren't satisfying in real life. So even though it makes a lot of sense for characters to die the way that they do, I've been thinking, what is the relationship between when should a character die, how it makes logical sense, and how does that relate to being satisfying to the story? And for me, that's a question that I'm still trying to discover. Because when I'm writing, my focus is always on what makes sense logically. Would this character actually be able to survive here? Would this character actually be able to fight back? But then I realized that sometimes the logic doesn't exactly matter. Maybe I shouldn't put my characters in a situation where they can die so easily. And so it's kind of like a conflict because you want there to be stakes, and you want there to be tension, and you want it to be that at any moment, anybody can die. When these characters are fighting Sukuna, it should feel like life or death. But if they all start dropping like flies, is that really a good thing? And I guess that's the question I'll leave you. Peace. Hey guys! Did you like that? I thought if I came out loud, it would be cool. All right. I don't really have much else to say for the outro besides expect the videos on my community page to come out. And I'm working on a big Jujutsu Kaisen fan project. It's something you probably haven't really seen before. Also, Rebirth is coming.